This is definitely not just another fitness podcast.
I'm just a lazy fit person.
I was there for 7 days and I reckon I ate 10 pizzas.
I eat like a monster.
If you're not enjoying yourself, what's the point?
Ask yourself why.
Honesty and empathy are two great places to start.
Start to associate yourself with the person you want to be.
Health comes first, way above performance and appearance.
Picture me naked.
Fat Andy is not a nickname you want to stick.
What are you having for tea?
Purple Monkey dishwasher.
I'm just going to wee and caffeinate and I'll be ready.
Use the sausage as a breakwater.
I mean, I just want to touch people.
Naked, smothered head to toe in almond butter.
80% of the time, I agree with Andy 100%.
Nice. Welcome to the Not Another Fitness podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Over to you straight away, Rambo. What you been up to? What you doing? What's going on?
What have I been up to? Well, what day is it? It's Monday. I have been trying to get outside and enjoy the weather on my own pretty much because Jack is a hay fever sufferer.
I feel his pain.
So yesterday it actually knocked him out pretty much. I did feel really sorry for him. So he spent most of the day on the sofa, just feeling grim. So I went out for a walk, trying to enjoy the sunshine. Probably our last weekend of maybe not seeing people physically.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Just working, had a very good burger on Saturday night, which was very enjoyable. Had the pleasure of bumping into you in the street, which is the first time I've physically seen you in a few months as well.
All these hours spent over Zoom, and then there we were, just ambling up the street towards each other.
Exactly.
Quite a beautiful moment in many ways.
Apart from the fact that I couldn't touch you. So,
no. I mean, we're very respectful of the social distancing guidelines, and we adhere to them fully. You'll be pleased to know.
Indeed. But yeah, it's kind of been it's getting a bit groundhoggy now, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm in very much a routine with my work patterns, with my coaching patterns, and as much as I do enjoy that, have felt a little bit overwhelmed this week in terms of workload and mental health. I think I'm missing my family a lot, and I think I'm probably missing people a lot more than I actually realize. So I'm keeping positive and trying to look forward to when we will be seeing people again. But not much to report really. What about yourself? How's your week been?
Yeah, not bad. Pretty good. Like, good weekend. Like yourself, trying to get outside, but also like Jack, hay fever is definitely not my friend at the moment. So it was particularly bad over the weekend. But hey ho, what are you going to do? But I love being outside. So it's one of them things, isn't it? It's a bit of a trade-off. I'm really similar to you. Groundhog Day, definitely feeling a bit of that recently, which I suppose in one way is good because it means that you know we've both got a routine down and we're both working on a regular basis, so that's good, like something to kind of occupy us. But I feel ready to see people now, which is weird. Like, I'm a bit apprehensive about it, and I think that's where, like, maybe like you talk about like the mental side of things. I was saying to Sarah earlier on today, actually, this is the most uncertain I've felt throughout the whole thing. And not because of the virus, but more, I'm thinking now potentially from maybe next week, meeting up with a couple of clients, like to do like one-to-one stuff. Because now there's a couple, whereas there's a chunk of people that have been training on Zoom, now there's a few people that, don't want to do the online stuff. They want the in-person stuff. And now obviously they kind of feel a bit more like emboldened to want to meet up. Mm-hmm. And whereas a couple of weeks ago, I know a lot of PTs have been able to do that for the last couple of weeks, but I definitely didn't feel confident about going to parks and stuff. Whereas now I'm like, if I can go to someone's house and they've got a big outdoor space or something like that, I'm like, okay, it's just a bit of a grey area. So I'm going to give it this week and kind of see how things go. And then, maybe next week or the week after, I'll start kind of testing the water with that, because it's a real fine line between, you want to help people out, and some of these people haven't really been training for months now, so I'm quite keen to obviously to want to help, but also it has to feel right. Because with this, like, the feelings of stuff are not constant because the restrictions aren't constant. it is a little bit of a roller coaster. Like one minute you hear something and you think, okay, we're getting back to normal. This is going to be great. July is going to be awesome. And then you read what the restrictions are still going to be and how important it is to kind of, you know, be vigilant. And you think, oh, actually, hold on a minute. How safe is it? So yeah, without going too far down that Corona rabbit hole, I'll leave it there. But yeah, interesting couple of weeks ahead, I would say. Interesting couple of weeks coming up.
And I think, like, I'm going to say one last thing on it, because
yeah, go for it.
Say too much, but I think there are definitely two camps of people at the moment. There are those that are not taking it very seriously, and there are those that are definitely aware of the risks and being cautious and still exercising caution where everything's concerned. And it's yeah, you know what you're comfortable with and you know what you're not comfortable with, and that's the main thing. So
yeah. I mean, I'm going to add something in now saying that we're not going to talk too long about it, but I do think from what you see on social media, it's very much like the two camps, because that's how things are portrayed. And the people that are most vocal have very strong views, and they express them online. So like you'll know which of your friends are, what's the big deal? And the ones that are like, how the fuck are you going outside? This is crazy. I feel like I'm moving from the being extra vigilant and maybe a little bit, you know, overcautious. I feel like I'm moving more now towards I'm feeling a bit more confident, and that's why it's a bit harder, because I feel like I'm in a bit of a grey area. But yeah, like I said, it will be so nice to see family though, right? At the end of the day, family, that will make a massive difference.
Yeah, and it's especially for me when my mum doesn't live down the road. Like, she's a good couple and a half hours away, so until I can actually go and hug her and stay over and spend time together, then it's not worth it for me. It's too much of a risk. So yeah, definitely massive family.
I mean, there's probably a joke to be had here about Dominic Cummings and going for an eye test around your mum's, all that kind of thing. But yeah, my mum's an optician. I needed an eye test. I drove to see her. What's the big deal?
We've avoided politics up until now.
Yeah,
so
let's just skirt around that. So today's topic is intermittent fasting, and this is one that it comes in waves, right, of popularity. It feels like it goes away for a while, and then there's another iteration of it, or maybe someone in the media jumps on the bandwagon and it gets another push, or another book comes out, and it's one of these things that it kind of comes and goes, but it's always spoken about as a way of potential health benefits, or losing weight, or just a way of eating. So what we're going to do today is break down maybe some of the different models that you can use, or some of the different types of intermittent fasting, some of the benefits, some of the negatives, and maybe just kind of give our thoughts on it in terms of if we see it as a just another tool in the toolbox, or is it superior to other diets, or is it actually just kind of a bit overblown and there's nothing special about it. But yeah, we'll go into that. Who's going to lead off today, Amy?
I will. Well, we'll start with just maybe defining some different examples that you might have heard over the years of intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
But they all work on the premise of restricting a time during the day where you will eat and where you will not eat. We're extending the period that you will not eat and shortening the period or the window of time during the day that you do eat. So I think how it probably got really popular was a few years ago, the 5-2 diet was the first kind of, way I heard about intermittent fasting. And even then it wasn't called an intermittent fasting. It was called the 5-2 diet.
5-2, yeah. Dr. Mosley.
Where you have 5 days of eating, was it like 1,600 calories or something like that? So still, anyway, calorie restriction, or 3 meals a day, balanced meals a day. And then you had 2 days where I think it was 500 calories only, or
yeah, I think the restricted days were definitely like around 600-ish, 600 to 800, something like that. I think I don't know if the 5 days, I don't know if there was like an imposed level on that or not. I kind of feel like it was just eat normally, eat sensibly, like kind of assuming that the deficit that you create, or if it's weight loss, the deficit you create over those 2 days is enough to get you in negative energy balance.
And that's the thing. You've literally just, done the whole podcast there, because it's you're welcome.
Just Mr. Efficient over here.
Because intermittent fasting, I'm going to struggle with this.
Intermittent fasting, eh? Amy's new take on it. Buy her book now, available in Waterstones when it's open.
I'm just a money making machine. Yeah, because that is the principle it works off. Is it shortens the feeding window, but still based on the principles of energy, being in an energy deficit, so consuming less calories that you need. Because people can get confused between intermittent fasting and then time restricted feeding. So with time restricted feeding, you still have a shorter feeding window, but you're still taking in enough calories that you need for either maintenance or, say, muscle growth. So you still are either in energy maintenance or an energy surplus. Whereas intermittent fasting as a weight loss tool, the whole purpose of it is it creates an energy deficit. And it is I'm going to say my thoughts on it, it can be a useful way to create that energy deficit. So yeah, the most popular way, I think, was a few years ago in terms of 5-2, but again, it wasn't really branded as intermittent fasting. I only really heard about intermittent fasting, and again, I'm doing that really awful air quote thing, from like in the last couple of years. And then there's all everybody, in the diet culture, social media world has their take on the best way to do it. In terms of, do you fast for 16 hours, eat for 8? Do you take 2 clear days? Do you do a 24-hour fast? I cannot think of anything worse than not eating for 24 hours. Like, oh my God.
Have you ever done it, by the way?
Not eat for 24 hours? No, I don't think I have. I know I could, but no, I wouldn't want to. Like, what's the point? Unless I think the only time I ever will have done it is when I've been ill. And even then, I try and shove down a piece of toast or something. Like,
okay, you're good at creating images. Carrying over from the last podcast, just shoving a bit of toast. A human toaster. Just.
Yeah. Have you ever done it? Not eating for 24 hours?
Yeah, a couple of times. I did it once. Because I can't think who it was. This might be wrong, so apologies if it is. But I think you heard of precision nutrition. Yeah. I think back in the day, like one of their, I was listening to like John Berardi or one of the guys over there, and he was talking about how when he worked with clients, he would start them off, like day one would be a 24-hour fast. And I think I don't know if it was more from like a psychological kind of thing of it's a bit of a, you press reset, or if it was just kind of showing people that you can go with 24 hours and not die, like you're kind of going to be fine. Or maybe he was kind of savvy with the potential benefits of, having a prolonged fast. But I remember listening to it and thinking, right, I'll just, I'll give it a go. And actually, if you can set it up. So I think what I did was I had my meal, say like on the Monday night, let's say I had the meal at 6 o'clock. So actually I had a full day the next day. So by the time I got home, it kind of didn't feel too bad. Like you get like the pangs at like, like skip breakfast, no big deal. Lunchtime, you're getting hungry, but like hunger's a funny thing. And this is something that maybe I'll talk a little bit about as regards to fasting. You tend to get, hunger comes in waves and it kind of peaks and it kind of dips. So if you respond to if I responded to every hunger cue I got, I would be in a bad way. I'd be massive. And it's a case of, it does teach you, one of the positives is if once you kind of ride hunger out, it gets to a point and then it might just dip below that. And you're like, okay, I can manage this. And we've all been through, like if you have an operation, you might have to fast for, 8 or 12 hours beforehand. We all fast overnight anyway for, maybe 8 hours, 10 hours. So our body's perfectly equipped to do it.
Can I just interject? Jack doesn't. He eats peanut butter and toast at 4 a.m.
Just in some kind of like sleep haze, just by the bedside table, just reaching across.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah. But back to back to the different methods of it. Yeah, 5-2 I think was when probably the population at large probably heard the first things about fasting or intermittent fasting, or like you said, I definitely am guilty of this. I'll use intermittent fasting and time restricted feeding interchangeably, but there is, like you said, there is a difference there. And actually in the literature, like when I was actually studying this, all the bulk of the early studies were all done in rats, no surprises there. And a lot of the early research, and actually probably the bulk of the research up until this point, is alternate day fasting. So like one day you just, again, eat normally, next day you have nothing. And they're looking at these, glycemic control, how you handle glucose in the blood. Is there, something at play with like circadian rhythms, all these kind of things they're trying to kind of monitor and see, is there potentially any beneficial effect? And then you kind of progress it along. So alternate day, and that's quite drastic, right? Because if you were doing alternate day fasting, that's either 3 or 4 days a week where you're having nothing. And I suppose why it hasn't really cottoned on, like you said, the thought of not eating for 24 hours is rough. Well, imagine that's like half your week. To me, that doesn't feel massively applicable unless it demonstrated amazing superior health benefits. Then you'd have a reason to do it. But actually, it was a good way of for people to lose weight, and health markers improved when they were kind of doing these studies. But the thing is that because of the intermittent fasting, or is that because they were consuming a shit ton less calories? And I would say it's because of the calorie restriction and the weight they're losing, and hence why if you're not in a surplus, you're going to have better glycemic control anyway, regardless of how you're positioning the meals. I think it's more interesting when you come to 5-2, because that's a slightly tamer version of it, and then the next kind of step along the ladder is time restricted feeding, or within day fasting, however you want to put it, and things like 16-8. So fast for 16 hours and you eat all your calories within an 8-hour window. That to me is, if you can get the benefits of fasting, that feels like a method that can potentially suit a lot of people. Because skipping breakfast, we're talking a little bit before, it can be as simple as that. Skip breakfast, don't be shoveling calories in before you go to bed. So you eat all your food between, I would say the most common one would be like 1 till 9, 12 till 8, 2 till 10, some iteration of those three. And I heard about 16-8 years ago now, from a guy called Martin Birkin, who's got his website, if it's still running, I assume it is Lean Gains. And this is kind of, he popularized this initially as a way of being able to eat more food in the evening and have a glass of wine and stuff with dinner. And obviously when you hear that, you're like, yeah, I'm sure that's why I was attracted to it back then. But yeah, I think the 16-8 method, or within day fasting, I think that's where I see the application being, working with clients.
Yeah. When you say working with clients, though, clients that have a weight loss goal?
Yeah, that's a good point, worth clarifying. Predominantly, yes. But if we move on to potential negative with that would obviously be when you train. So if I'm saying to you, right, Amy, we've talked about, we've discussed intermittent fasting. It's something you're interested in. Let's give it a go. Right, you're going to eat between 1 and 9, and then you're like, yeah, well, I train at 6 a.m. I'm going to be less keen to do that.
Yeah.
Not because you couldn't pull it off, but in my head, then suddenly so you can do it, right? There's no reason why you can't still do that, but you have to accept that you're missing out on especially on a protein feed after that 6 a.m. session, which I think seems counterintuitive if the goal is to retain lean muscle.
Yeah, I think this is the problem. And this is where it's important as a coach to manage expectations and to know that when intermittent fasting is useful. If you've got somebody, if your client is obese, so they need to reduce their weight to improve their health markers, including insulin sensitivity, reduction of possible risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular health. Using an intermittent fasting approach can be really beneficial in order to create a window in which they consume their calories, they eat at a deficit, obviously coupled with some kind of education around what foods are more beneficial for them, for their health, rather than they should be eating, and keeping up their needs, hopefully doing some kind of resistance training as well. Intermittent fasting can be brilliant if you've got somebody who is of a healthy weight, they already resistance train, they want to get stronger, or they actually value how much they can lift in the gym, and they are thinking about restricting their calories or using an intermittent fast, and like you say, they train at 6 a.m, I would be maybe suggesting that it's not the best tool to use. It's just, you've got to be really aware when you are training of the energy demands that places on the body, and especially with what type of training you do as well. If you're into endurance training, there are some arguments to say that women specifically utilize fat as a better source of fuel than carbohydrates. So would it be better if you're on a keto diet? To be honest, I don't even really want to get into that. So maybe they can train better fasted than fed, but any kind of endurance sport, particularly, you need to have those kind of stores, and you maybe need to even be taking in energy while you are training. And particularly if your lifestyle isn't set up for any kind of intermittent fasting, say you do train at 6 a.m. and you want to retain lean muscle mass and you're already a healthy body weight, introducing a fast where you don't eat until 12 or 1 o'clock, but you've already trained at 6 a.m, that is actually just placing your body under more stress than it needs to be. And you're actually not supporting your goal by doing that.
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously going to be a recurring theme for every single podcast we do. And it's because as we're saying stuff, you think of the caveats. Yeah. Like you can see, like we're both, you start thinking about the different scenarios and the different individuals, because let's say you have a client who, for whatever reason, they've read about intermittent fasting and they really want to try 16-8 with a 1 till 9 feeding window, but they train at 6 a.m. It doesn't mean they can't do it, but as a coach, you have to explain and this comes down to their priorities. You have to say to them that I don't think that's ideal for muscle retention. But if their goal is actually, the goal at the moment is weight loss, and that's going to help me adhere to it, then maybe you sacrifice a little bit of lean mass loss to make the diet easier as a whole, because that's what they want to do. Or you say to them, you can explore. It's not just like a black and white. You can explore avenues. So could you say, you'd say to the client, "Oh, is there any chance of you maybe training after work?" "No." "Oh, but actually there's a gym at my office, so I can train at lunchtime. Would that be better?" "Yeah, that'd be amazing, because then you get the first meal in right after. That'd actually probably work an absolute treat." Yeah. And in terms of the endurance sport, for most people, this is like a conversation, a well-trodden conversation for myself. Like when people are doing what I call endurance-based stuff, and it's under an hour and a half. Well, if you fuel beforehand, you don't need to be like smashing down, gels and God knows what else, like during the workout. This is a conversation I have with runners on a regular basis. but when you do drift, but for some people, like you said, it depends on if you've slept over, if you've had a massive meal in the evening and you wake up in the morning to do a 6 a.m. session, an endurance session, let's say, you're going to have a certain amount of, the muscle glycogen is going to be fairly full. It's not like you've been like running in your sleep, hopefully. Your liver glycogen will be a little bit depleted, but nothing crazy. But a lot of it depends on like intensity. If you're going out to run like your PB half marathon, I'd say you want to have some fuel before that, because you don't want to be dipping into those stores. If you're going to have to do like a really steady pace, well within your capabilities, like a slow hour or even a slow hour and a half, you could pull that off. You use fats as fuel as long as the breathing's not out of control. But yeah, I just think, like, I mean, to me personally, I'll kind of lay my cards on the table. As a weight loss tool, or as a way of simplifying the diet, I think intermittent fasting, that's where I think it has its biggest benefit, right? So I don't think there's any magic to it. I think it's a simple way of getting someone to reduce calories without too much fuss. So I think the last episode we talked about should you be tracking calories and the positives and negatives of tracking calories. Well, one of the massive negatives of using FitnessPal and tracking calories is the amount of effort that you need to weigh food, enter it on an app, keep an eye on macros potentially, always trying to hit within a certain number. Well, so there's that approach, or there's, right, Andy, here's the instruction. I want you to eat all your food between 1 and 9. Okay, right, I've got that. And what's the other instruction? That's it. That's all I want you to do. But what have I got to eat? Yeah, eat what you want. Just do your own thing for the time being. Oh, fucking hell, that's the easiest diet to follow in the world. Do you know what I mean? And if you get someone like that who maybe doesn't feel hungry in the morning, then you could have yourself a winner. And you might have to give any more. Obviously, over time, you're probably going to help them out a bit more with the diet and stuff. But just as a really easy win and to get them rolling, that is as simple as it gets.
Yeah. I think I sound like a massive fence sitter, because I'm always like, well, it depends. It depends.
I think it's important to say that, though, because you know, like, whenever you put anything out in public, I think about who's listening to it.
Yeah.
And part of that is a really good thing to do, because you're trying to be considerate. But also you think, oh, but that person might want to hear that. Oh, but I wouldn't say that to that person. You have your client. I have my clients like in my head, and I'm like, oh, well, you know, she wouldn't want to hear that. But actually, he could do with hearing that. And it does depend on your own situation.
But same as always, 80% of the time I agree with you 100%.
Which is all I can hope for, to be honest.
No, I do. I completely agree. Like, if it is a weight loss tool, and you don't feel hungry in the mornings, you don't really want to eat, you're busy in the mornings, you have less food preoccupation in the mornings, and it's easy for you to not eat at that time and not start eating until 1 o'clock, then it is a complete easy win. I get asked a lot as well, well, I train in the morning, should I have something to eat beforehand? And like you, if you've eaten a good meal the night before, I don't really care, to be honest. If you're just going to do an hour class or an hour in the gym and it makes you feel sick to eat, or that actually means that you have half an hour, 45 minutes less sleep because you have to get up to eat, then I would always prioritize the sleep at that time.
Yeah.
But I would caveat that by saying would be beneficial for you to consume some kind of protein and carbohydrates, you know, within an hour window after training, if you have been training fasted, particularly, like we said, for that retention of lean muscle mass, whether weight loss or muscle gain is your goal there. I think that's beneficial in order for both of those goals. It's a great tool. I've done it before. I've used intermittent fasting, as I'm sure you have. It does work really well. I would say, if we maybe creep into the negatives a little bit, for someone like myself who can get very preoccupied with food, it maybe increases food preoccupation slightly in terms of clock watching. I was always like, oh my God, when can I eat?
That's really interesting. So I would this is my 20% of not agreeing with you, telling you that your personal experience is wrong. But no, but just I would look at it as, it's funny, isn't it? Like, this is why this is like a grey area, because I would say when I've done it, it's the exact opposite. It's, oh, cool, there's a whole chunk of time throughout the day where I'm not thinking about food.
Oh, really? I just enjoy eating so much.
Hey, I'm with you. I'm 100%. I mean, 100% agreement with that.
It surprises me that you can switch it off like that. Really, I think in the times, when, I don't know, like maybe it might be the same for you as well. Like, you're an early riser though as well, and you're usually straight into
Yeah.
work. Like, the times I was doing it was when I was up early in the car, 2-hour commute to work, working all day, teaching, tired, hunger cues were out of whack anyway. So, and I was trying to fast till like 12:01 in the morning. 12:01 in the
Yeah.
morning, 12:01 at lunchtime. I was
That's
like,
a
no wonder I was hungry.
that's a long fast.
Yeah. So like, I was just very food aware, and I would really look forward to and crave that first meal. And I am the type of person who will, like, if you tell me, and you know this about me because you've coached me, but like, if you tell me that I've got 1,800 calories to eat a day, I will make every single 1,800 of those calories count.
Yeah.
And if I can't start eating till 12, that won't make me consume 500 calories less. I will still have exactly the food I need to have, and I will plan it out within those 8 hours. So like, okay, I'll start eating at 12, then I'll have another snack at 2 and another snack at 3 and another snack at 4, because I feel restricted.
Yeah.
So personally, and if that's why it's really important, if you're utilizing IF, which is how I'll refer to it.
Oh, she's dropped a bit of IF in.
Yeah, if you're utilizing it as a tool, it's important to know where it has its place, and also when it doesn't serve you anymore, which is a very good conversation that I had with a client last week, who was slash still is a flight attendant. And another useful area I used it is when I was flying.
Yeah, big time.
Because obviously, like, jet lag, my days were like 20 hours long. So utilizing a period of fasting, it was really beneficial because it minimized the window in which I was eating. Otherwise, you just feel like you're eating for like 36, 48 hours constantly. So implementing a fast is really, really good. Obviously, now we're in this period of lockdown. We have been for the last 2 months. We had a conversation because she's struggling with a few different things. And she was like, right, so I intermittent fast, and I have done for months because of flying. And I was like, okay, great. We haven't been flying for 2 months now. You're exercising once a week. Like, it doesn't serve you anymore. So it's knowing when to utilize it and when to leave it behind in terms of structuring your own lifestyle.
Could not agree more. Could not, because a lot with dietary protocols, like however you want to term them, they're really useful, but it's not like you have to, if you start doing like intermittent fasting, that doesn't mean you're tied to it for life. It's same exactly what we're talking about with like counting calories. You can dip in and out, and it might be like it serves you for a few months or a period of time, and then you drop it off. I think all of this is underpinned by, just because you're intermittent fasting, it doesn't mean you're eating shit. Just because you're counting calories, it doesn't mean you should be eating shit. Like, the underlying theme should be eating like, you know, good, healthy, hopefully minimally processed single ingredient food the majority of the time, like that 80-20 rule. From a personal point of view, so like giving an example, like a positive and negative that I found with it. So on the positive side, when it worked at its absolute best, I had a setup in the gym where I used to have 6 clients, right? So I'd be up at 5, I'd have a coffee in the morning. So so I wasn't eating all morning. I'd have a client.
How much does coffee actually like repel hunger though, to be fair?
I mean, if you drink the amount that I do, it's probably blunted that effect. But yeah, like caffeine's a really, so basically my routine in the morning was, and it still is part of it, always drink like a pint of water, always have a black coffee. That'd be like that staple, whether I'm having food with it or not. So I'd get to the gym at 6, I'd have back-to-back clients, 6, 7, 8. So then it'd be 9 o'clock, and I'd have a half-hour gap, which would probably be another coffee or maybe a tea. And then it'd be back-to-back clients, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, finish at 12:30, get my stuff together. Sometimes I would work out then, but ideally what I'd want to do then is get home, make something, and then 1 o'clock would be my first meal. And then I'd probably train mid-afternoon, maybe a few more clients. And then I'd have, yeah, like a big meal in the evening. So I might only eat twice a day. Maybe there'd be a third one in there. But that, because I'm busy and occupied for those kind of 6 or 7 waking hours first thing, if I'm occupied and my brain's occupied, I'm not with a client thinking, oh, you know, I really want a sandwich. It's just not in my head. If I'm sat around here, like if I tried to do intermittent fasting during lockdown, it'd be a fucking disaster. Like there'd be no point, and I'd find it a lot harder to stick to.
Yeah.
Were
you trying to actively be in a deficit then though?
Yeah, yes. And yeah, I should have said that. Yeah. So that was useful. I found that really useful from a dieting perspective, because I could have, like, say, 600 to 800 calorie lunch, probably like close to 6, and then have, like well over 1,000 calories left to play with later on in the day. So again, either split between a big meal and a shake, or a big meal and a dessert. But that's where I'm coming on to the negative. So not often, but there were occasions where if you stack that many calories to the evening, I could not stop eating. And it would basically be like, I'd be abusing it to the point of, I'm just really having a binge in the evening here. I have a reasonable lunch, because I knew I'd be going training, but then the dinner would be huge. It'd be like a tub of, what's it called? Halo top, or one of the whole tub of that would be gone, and I might still have a couple of hundred left over. And I'd go to bed and be like, just in some kind of food coma. Yeah. Terrible night's sleep off the back of that, or not feeling good, not waking up feeling brilliant either. So then it's like, actually, this reminds me of, back when I was bigger, eating a ton of shit before bed was like the norm. Yeah. So there's too much of for me, there was a bit of a crossover there. And I'm like, actually, I think I need to knock this on the head now and just get back into a normal routine.
And that's the thing, like, if you're intermittent fasting for weight loss, one of the key components of trying to build those calories, or build the calorie deficit, is keeping protein high. And if you're having, like, say your 600 calorie lunch might be, an omelette with a tin of tuna, but and like a really high calorie, high protein lunch, so you've got your protein in there. But then if you're just focusing on the calories and you're consuming all those in the evening, I bet you weren't over consuming chicken breasts or tuna, or any kind of lean protein source. He is very melancholily shaking his head right now.
Shameful.
Because the tendency when you get to that level of hunger, or you feel that level of restriction, whether you know it or not, is that the foods you're going to want to overconsume are hypercaloric foods. You're not going to want to overconsume protein, which is what you should really be focusing on if you are in a deficit, to try and keep yourself full and not lose any lean muscle mass. And ideally that should be spread throughout the day. So yes, fasting can be great for the other benefits, in terms of it's very easy to fit into our busy lifestyles now. If you are busy, you don't have to prep an extra meal. You can spend more time with your loved ones in the evening. You can spend an extra half an hour in bed in the morning. You don't have to carry Tupperware around with you everywhere. Yeah. But in terms of other principles which are quite not fundamental to weight loss, but support effective weight loss and maintenance of lean muscle, in terms of adequate protein intake spread throughout the day, coupled with resistance training, it doesn't necessarily support it.
No, not all the time, and not in like instances like that I was describing there. Like, I think it's like with all of these things, you have to look at the application of it. You have to look at what you're trying to get out of it, and then look at your day and diary and see, does it actually suit your setup? And it's like those kind of 2 or 3, the 2 things of like, your classic of like goal. What is the goal? And then how does that look in real life? So there's always that kind of optimal pathway that you can take and set things up. So say, right, we're gonna picking intermittent fasting first and then constructing your life around that probably is not the right way to go. It's like, look at what your lifestyle currently is in terms of work, family commitments when you train, and then have a look at different approaches. Maybe intermittent fasting will be absolutely perfect for you, but maybe it'll be a fucking disaster.
Yeah. Like, for example, if someone came to me and was like, I'm struggling to lose weight. I'm getting really stressed out in the evenings because I feel like I have, so much food prep to do, and like, I don't know what to prep. And I can't take like 3 bags with me to work because I've got like breakfast, lunch, dinner. I've got a laptop and it's annoying to get on the train. I'd be like, all right, don't worry about prepping so much. Just don't have breakfast. Like, let's take the stress element out of it. Let's not have breakfast. Do you need breakfast? No, not necessarily. You don't train in the morning. You struggle sleeping, so it's going to be more beneficial for you to actually have that extra half an hour or hour in bed before you leave for work. Let's remove that stress element for you altogether. Yeah, perfect. That is where it can be really, really useful. I think another like maybe negative that we haven't explored is the social impact that it can have if someone sticks to it quite rigidly as well.
Yeah, social impact. Again, it's looking at what your kind of social life entails, and then if you're trying to put on. So actually, like, we can talk a little bit about 5-2 here. So let's say we've given the example there of 16-8. So you're trying to eat your calories between let's say, like, again, like typically it's like 1 p.m. and 9 p.m. but maybe it's like 2 till 10. What happens if you're on a night out, or if you're going to a restaurant a bit later? You're meeting friends at 8:30 and you're going to be out until close. What do you do then? Do you kind of, I mean, I know what I'd do. I'd just be like, I'm having a day off. or I might actually think ahead and be like, right, actually, I'm not going to have and I've had this with clients actually, that ones that are like, I really want to stick to it. Is it okay to do, 4 p.m. until midnight? And I'm like, yeah, if you want to, if it's that important to stay with it and it's not going to cause you any stress for one night, it's absolutely fine. But it's not ideal, right? It's not ideal socially. And the reason why, we talk about, or I'm talking about doing the fast kind of early afternoon till the evening. There's nothing to stop you doing a fast from 9 till 5. To have your eating window from 9 till 5, or, something of that nature. But then to sit at home all evening and not eat, that makes it a bit tricky. And I think where 5-2 diet, which is, the 2 really low calorie days, can work well. Again, if we talk about in terms of simplicity, you've only got to be on the diet for 2 days a week, which immediately appeals. And, you put on one days where, like, again, if I was going to do the 5-2 diet now, I would look in my diary and think, right, what are the 2 busiest days kind of, or most stimulating brain-wise? So if I'm on the computer a lot, or if I'm in the gym and like interacting, not thinking about food, I'd put the 2 days. I'd actually, if someone said you've got to do the 5-2, I'd do that first, and then I'd be like, right, let's get training on the days where I'm eating a bit more to support training, and that can work unbelievably well in terms of simplicity. And again, if that leads you into a deficit and weight loss is the goal, then happy days. Then you're only dieting 2 days a week, and that's, again, like, that simplicity part of it is great. And socially, you can obviously make sure that your non-fasting days fall over the weekend. No one's fasting on a Saturday, Sunday.
This is the thing though as well. Like, I think some people, there's a little bit of maybe misunderstanding though as well, because like, you've just sold that to everybody who wants weight loss. Like, you only have to diet for 2 days a week. You still have to maintain an energy deficit across the whole of the week. So it doesn't mean that Saturday and Sunday you can go and eat and drink whatever the hell you want, because if it puts you in a surplus, you will put on weight.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a really, disheartening thing. Well, hang on, I'm being really restrictive 2 days a week. Well, there you go, Karen, you're over consuming again on the weekend. You're going for it, and this is where it can be quite, not dangerous, but just used ineffectively if it's not used with proper guidance and understanding. That's the thing.
As soon as you said that, there's two kind of like thoughts that go off in either direction. And it is, the people that look at it and think 2 days fast, 5 days, eat as much as I can.
Yeah.
because if you go into it with that mindset, then you will blow that deficit out of the water, and it's kind of happy days. Well, not happy days, it's a nightmare. And people are, oh, it didn't work, 5-2 is rubbish. It's like, well, no, if you can abuse any diet, you can abuse 16-8. If you can shovel enough food in that 8-hour window, you're good to go. But on the, what was I going to say?
What was the other train of thought?
One was negative, one was positive. That was the negative one. Was he lean? See, this is about the third time I've done this today. Completely forgot what I was going to say.
You sleep all right, mate?
I did sleep well last night, actually. I did. What were you saying, Amy?
Andy's having another brain fart. I was talking about Karen over-consuming at the
I think that's what threw me.
Karen's gone out for a Prosecco and just had a kebab and fucked it.
That's not helping me get my train of thought back. I was going to try and give a positive to the 5-2 then, but I've completely forgotten what it was.
It's a really good way of creating an energy deficit. A really easy way if you've got a busy lifestyle and you don't want to be preoccupied with food decisions.
Yeah, I mean I keep coming back to like the main positive to me is definitely the simplicity element of it. I mean, just moving on, maybe that my thoughts will arrange themselves as we go. But I had, this was it. Yeah, just circling back. This is going to be a hash of an edit. A lot of the studies when they've looked at 5-2 or any kind of intermittent fasting setup. One, this is like what the researchers are kind of speculating, but I guarantee I would put money on it being the truth. We know that like calories play the biggest part in terms of weight loss, right? So if you get someone eating, say like you set someone up to eat 8 small meals a day or 6 small meals a day, let's say, and we know that people overeat, that to me is like 6 to 8 opportunities for someone to overeat. Whereas if you say to someone, right, you're only eating once a day and it's 500 to 600 calories, here's this recipe book or whatever, a bunch of ideas, it's once a day and that's it. They might overeat still a little bit. They might overshoot it a little bit, but I guarantee if you try to do the smaller meals more often, there's more room for error. So again, in terms of something that's quite simplistic that can work, that's another tick in the box.
Again, 80% agree. No, I do agree. However, if I had somebody that was, again, and I'm going off on the fence sitter in terms of like, it depends on the client, it depends on the goal. If I had someone that came to me and was like, right, I've been dieting for 15 years, I've done everything, I really think that intermittent fasting is going to be a good way for me to create an energy deficit. I know all about energy balance, XYZ, I want to intermittent fast. I would not feel as a coach like I was exercising a duty of care to that client to just go, yeah, sure, off you go, crack on. Because
see how you get on.
See how you get on with that. Because yes, they might achieve weight loss, fat loss. They might well create an energy deficit. It might well be something that they can adhere to and stick to for a period of time to get them to where they want to be. And then what? And then what? Do they know how to eat? Do they know how to sustain their energy levels in a busy, stressful life? Do they know how to navigate social situations? Do they know what to do when they find themselves at the bottom of a Ben and Jerry's tub? Do they know?
Get another one.
Stock flavor, mate.
Stock up. Make sure that's on the next food shop.
Depends what flavour. Do they actually have a good relationship with food, and do they know how to then eat for the rest of their lives? Because I would very much argue that fasting or creating a window of time where you do restrict your feeding is not sustainable when you're 60, 65, 70. And I will take the comeback from that for whoever wants to give it, but for me it's a tool that you utilize once you've established habits that you can return to and effectively carry on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, there's definitely a duty of care element there, and Yeah, you're right. I think you have to be, if someone comes in mad keen to try something and they've tried every other diet and they're just bouncing from one to the other, and ultimately the underlying issue is they've just never actually, like, again, I use the phrase eat normally, but they've never actually just, they could probably do with thinking a little bit less about food and the diet and just relaxing with it, not being put in some other arbitrary approach with a bunch of rules and different things they must do and set up. And people they love that kind of, again, that at the start of it, you have that honeymoon period and it's all new and it's all fun. And then that one crashes and burns and it's on to the next one, But yeah, case by case, definitely. Excuse me. The point I was thinking of earlier when we were talking about 5-2 and actually this moves on to a little bit of like client examples. So intuitively, and I thought exactly the same thing as you, like the point you made about 5-2, it doesn't matter if you can restrict for 2 days, but if you go nuts on the other 5 and overeat and wipe out the energy balance, then the diet's not going to work. But one of the proposed benefits, and a couple of clients have definitely seen this with any kind of time restricted feeding, 16-8 or 5-2 being the 2 examples that I'm referencing now. 2 of these clients in particular reported not feeling as hungry and also just feeling like they had better control of their hunger and appetite in general. And that's something that's kind of something that's mentioned in studies, but it's really hard to measure that, because I mean, you can score people, subjectively and stuff, but it's just kind of remarks that were made. And now, does like I spoke about earlier with, you get that kind of peak of hunger and then it kind of like just starts to dissipate and you can actually, it's like when you get that pang of hunger, a little tool that you can use is, do you know what, don't just jump to the fridge, sit on it for 10 minutes or half an hour and just be like, right, is that genuine hunger? Or is that just, that cake looks nice and I want to eat it? And with a guy called Steve, he was the first person that he came to me and said, I've seen this program about 5-2, I want to try it. And I didn't have any dietary experience at the time. And I was just training him in the gym. And he was like, what do you think of it? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've heard of it, but I don't know the ins and outs of it. So I watched the program, learned a little bit more about it. And he was like, I'm going to give it a go. And I said, it'll be interesting to see. So he starts losing weight. Bearing in mind, he's like a 95 kilo guy. So, there's a bit of weight to lose. And he started losing the weight, like nothing spectacular, but it just kept creeping down. Just these 2 fasting days a week, making sure that it didn't kind of clash with training. And that was the reporting back from him when we were talking about it was, he's like, I can't believe how, he goes, I'm just not as hungry anymore. Because he was worried about overeating on the 5 days. And I think he said in the first couple of weeks, he was consciously not eating as much, or being conscious that, I better not undo my good work. But after like a couple of months, so he did it for 6 months, 6 to 8 months, something. There might have been a holiday in the middle of that when he wasn't doing it, but generally speaking for that long. And he was basically, that was like one of the biggest bits of feedback from him. So the weight loss was unspectacular, but consistent, which was great. And he found it incredibly easy to stick to.
Interesting.
So that was like, cool. I was talking to one of my other clients about this, just as a topic of discussion, a girl called Nat, and she was like, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to change her name there just in case.
Not again.
I was speaking about this with another client. Let's call her Amy for the sake of protecting her identity. And Amy's a hairdresser. And she's like, oh, this sounds good. I could do a bit of that. I could do this, the kind of the 5-2 thing a couple of days. And she fucking hated it. She did it for a couple of weeks and was like, I felt, whether this is like psychosomatic or whatever, but, I felt hungry. Customers were like offering me biscuits and stuff. I couldn't like join in with the girls and like sit down and have lunch on certain days. Like socially, I felt hungry all the time. The complete opposite experience. So the first 2 kind of forays into intermittent fasting with 2 clients who kind of took it upon themselves to do it. One loved it, one hated it. So it's a very small sample size, admittedly, but this is what I mean about, she just kind of did it because she'd heard about it and was like, oh, that's something to do. It's like a diet. So it's a bit new. I like the sound of it. Probably, again, all 5 days of just eating what I want. That sounds good. But in reality, when you know pretty quickly, if you do it for like 2-3 weeks, especially if you've done something for a month and you're hating it or finding it hard or it's not serving you, ditch it.
Yeah.
In it, because it's not for you. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just not for you.
And like you say, like there are studies in terms of how periods of fasting do impact on your hunger levels and how you respond to your hunger cues. But it's so individual, and that it depends. I mean, yes, you could argue in terms of your hormones or your hormone levels and things like that, in terms of like your leptin and ghrelin and your hunger and satiety hormones and how much they're stimulated with periods of fasting. But it's so individual, individual, and so many other things are factored into it as well, in terms of like how much weight you have to lose to start with, whether if you are obese, you're probably not very sensitive to your hormone cues in terms of hunger and satiety anyway. Have you had a shit night's sleep, in which case you're going to be a little bit hungrier? And like, it's just so individual. Have you got a bad relationship with food? Therefore, if you've grown up always being on a diet, whatever restriction you're placed under, you will see it as that. You will see it as restrictive, and you will almost be resistant from the start. So you won't think, you will be more aware of, oh, that little bit of hunger will suddenly become you're ravenous because you're hypersensitive to it. And like, I don't think it's a bad thing if you are trying to create an energy deficit to be hungry occasionally. You know,
it's gonna happen.
It's going to happen, and it's important to learn to manage that. But like you say, if you are trying to do something and you are hating every single moment, and you are sat there wanting to eat your arm off, and you feel knackered, you've got no energy for training, and it's just not something that, it's creating like a really bad relationship with food, or you're getting really preoccupied with food thoughts, and then there's got to be a better way to do things. And I would not ever say that you need to sustain anything that is creating that much stress around food, and outside of making a decision on what to eat. So
no, absolutely. And look at the examples that we've only used like a handful of examples, like talking about ourselves. We've had different experiences with like thinking about food. My first 2 clients did 5-2, completely different experiences. There's one lady at the moment who I'm working with. She's doing like a 16-8 approach, and again, it was her. It's actually funny with intermittent fasting, thinking about it now. Like, quite a few of the clients I've used it with, they've come to me with it, or they've heard about it. But she came to me, and obviously in lockdown, I was a bit hesitant in terms of adding another stress in, but she'd done all the reading about it. She'd been like reading studies and stuff. She was well up on it. And she's like, oh, what do you think about doing like 16-8? Have you heard of that? I was like, yeah, this is kind of how I would do it. Okay, cool. And we went back and forth, set her up. And she's lost weight. She's kind of doing like pound and a half a week. It's been like beautifully like linear, almost as predictable as you can get. She's tracking calories. She's doing cardio. She's doing some resistance work, and she's managing that. And about 6 weeks in, was probably when she first started saying, "Do you know what? I was feeling it today on that run. Like, I was feeling a bit depleted." And she's like, "Do you think that's because of the intermittent fasting?" And I was like, yeah. I said, it could be that, or it could be the fact you've been in a deficit for 6 weeks now, and however you chop it up, your training's been getting gradually ramped up. The diet's been pretty consistent. Actually, now like the energy demands are probably going up, so we might need to actually keep the fasting window as it is, but you might just need to eat a little bit more. And will she do it forever? No, but I think at the moment, for someone who, again, if we kind of look to wrap this up, in summary, I would say if you're thinking about doing it, or if you're considering it, I think the people that it works really well for, or let's say the scenario would be weight loss predominantly. Like if your main goal is to gain muscle or gain size, I wouldn't do it. it's certainly like not, to me, that doesn't make sense. It's like you're almost making life harder for yourself. So it'd be weight loss, fat loss client. It would be, for me, I think the 16-8 is superior because you haven't got those chronically low days. So you can kind of be a bit more flexible with training. That being said, if you are doing 16-8, I think it helps if you train in the evening. That to me, that would be preferable. And I think that if you're already like really lean and you're trying to get like incredibly lean, would I impose that stress in there? Maybe, maybe not. I just think those first three are the key to it. I think it's a weight loss goal and you train in the evening, and maybe you're not a fan of breakfast. You know your hunger signaling's higher in the PM. That's where I would use it predominantly.
Yeah, I would hasten to agree. Definitely weight loss clients. I would also implement it, like I said, with somebody who has quite a structured day and maybe doesn't want to add in the stress of like prepping another meal, or struggle, or maybe they're out of the house a lot and like they struggle to know where to get food from. So like if you're buying food out, obviously that has a tendency to be more calorific than what you would maybe make in the home. So it might be more, if you know you're out all day, it might be beneficial to fast in the morning. So that maybe those kind of clients, and maybe someone in the city who does a lot of dining in the evening as well, that can be very, very useful if they still have a weight loss goal.
That's a great shout, by the way, the people who commute, because you think about the men and women that are on that early train into Liverpool Street, like whether it's like traders or people working in banks, their day's pretty much like full on, especially first thing, and then blasting work out through until lunch. So for them, it's like head down on the desk and no time for eating anyway.
Definitely some kind of shift worker as well. I think while it's important to sustain energy levels, it's also important to get a little bit of structure in terms of when you should be feeding and when you maybe should not be eating, just to avoid overconsumption, because you can still lose weight as a shift worker, but the fact is that your patterns are all out of whack. So again, that would be very much like a coach-client relationship in terms of building a structure to the day in terms of periods of feeding, periods of fasting. And it might not necessarily be as rigid as 16-8, depending on the patterns. But yeah, definitely useful. Can be very useful as a weight maintenance tool as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I haven't even spoken about that really.
No, I know, like navigating social situations as a weight maintenance tool if someone's concerned about that. But again, I know, again, we always come back to this, and it sounds like we're almost self-promoting our services, but I do think it's important to have a little bit of guidance around these things, as opposed to where they can be useful, where that serves you as a tool, and where maybe it doesn't still serve you anymore. Because people and again, we haven't even mentioned this, and this is something we talked about before coming on. People get really attached to their diets, and like it's a label that you put on something, and it's like, oh, I do IF, I'm an intermittent faster. Oh no, I just didn't have breakfast this morning. I wasn't actually like intermittent fasting. I just spent an extra hour in bed watching Netflix, so I didn't actually have breakfast until 12. Like I wasn't fasting.
People end up doing a version of intermittent fasting almost by default. I would say the biggest like skip breakfast, and you're probably going to end up doing some form of 16-8-ish. But I think where people, I actually think the genius of like 16-8 is, there's a lot of people, I would say, that feel like they have breakfast because they think they should, as opposed because they really want it. So you alleviate that burden from someone who's been told that breakfast is the most important meal of the day their entire lives. You suddenly tell them you don't have breakfast anymore, and they're like, wow, that's amazing. But it's that putting the handbrake on at like 8 or 9 p.m. in the evening, because that eliminates a lot of shite before bed. If someone's like, raiding the fridge raiding the freezer for the Ben and Jerry's at like 10 p.m., that, if you're sticking to it, that's not an option now. That goes.
Damn it.
Yeah, I know, sad times. I'll throw another one in there. Just that, like, if, again, it feels pertinent speaking about it after talking about tracking last time out, but if someone doesn't want to track calories, or maybe we've established that tracking calories is more trouble than it's worth, you're then left with, you know, there's like I said, it's always about tools and what tools you're going to throw someone. And I think in terms of simplicity and giving some structure without having to weigh everything, that's where, whether you call it intermittent fasting or time restricted feeding, I do think that can work really well. And actually something that I do is probably almost a middle ground with a lot of people. I'll say to them, almost forget the intermittent fasting part of it, but I'll say, right, you're going to eat today 4 times today. And I don't care when it is, or, 3 or 4 times, we've already hopefully underpinned that thing about eating good food. So you pick the 4 times, happy with that? Yep, cool, right. We're going to use that as a basic structure and move forward again. And that's not a great, scientific leap. It's just, if someone's eating 4 times instead of 8, they're less likely to overeat. And if they know they're only going to eat 4 times in a day, that hopefully encourages some kind of preparation with snacks and meals and that kind of stuff.
What did we say before, mate? Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Nice.
I think we leave it there. I think
we've done. We've smashed it.
We've
done it again. We've bloody done it again, mate.
Thank you very much. That was a joy as always.
Cool. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Hope you found that useful. If you do have any questions regarding intermittent fasting or anything else, or any suggestions for future podcasts, please leave them in the comments box as always. And yeah, I think we'll sign off there with our new sign off that we've got in the can already.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Not Another Fitness podcast. If you liked what we do, please subscribe and share. Tell all your friends. And if you want to follow us over on our socials, you'll find me and my contact details over on Instagram at The Flying Food Coach. And you'll find Andy
over at Facebook at the Facebook group Eat, Move, Lift, Enjoy, or feel free to drop me an email on info@andrewjohnscraggs.com. Thanks again for listening. Until next time. That'll do.
Yeah, that'll do. That's good.
That'll do. I'll put that on there as well. That'll do.